Hello ladies and gents, welcome back to the show. We are going to do something new. I'm doing a fair few things these days that are new, at least to me and to the channel, which I'm desperately trying to grow. And that new thing today is going to be that I'm going to reflect on a very recent event, which is the Chessable Masters that just finished. And the whole competition would deserve an entire, I don't know, series or multiple videos of content, because there have been so many games played that were so awesome and worthy of making videos about, but I sort of missed the boat there earlier on, and now I feel like I'm running a bit behind. So I'm just going to reflect on the final between Carlsen and Giri. And before I even jump into the games, I just would like to mention that the whole entire series was very fascinating. I really did like the chess that I saw. But it needs to be stressed that the games were played with time controls that allow us to cast no judgment whatsoever on either players. And I think that, well, I don't want to sound very philosophical, but people tend to be very judgmental, especially when it comes to the gods of any genre. And we are talking about the gods of chess here, and it's very easy to go like, oh, how could they blunder this, how could they do that, blah blah blah. It's blitz, everyone blunders everything, and it's 15-minute chess. I think that considered, they did really good stuff. And so I thought that I would go through a couple of games very briefly, and I don't even want to pretend that I understand what's going on in some cases. But I'm going to try to shed some light from my point of view and how I saw these games and what happened in them, just to give you perhaps a little bit of an explanation and an insight into what was going on. And just one more thing before I really jump into it. Giri has been copying a lot, and seriously a lot, of rubbish coming his way about his tendency to draw every single game and some. And whilst this definitely had some truth to it, having gone through these games, I had to acknowledge the fact that Giri did have an incredible fighting spirit throughout the whole series. And I'm going to model that to you right away with the first game, which was a mainline Catalan with Giri in the white trunks. And he's chucking out mainline theory here, playing for a very wholesome variation where we really have fight going on. In move 9, white is already contesting the entirety of the center, but black is about to counterpunch with c5, a really complex, a really juicy position. So already kudos to both players for going into something really wild. And again, Giri chooses not to chicken out by any stretch and play one of the more conservative and solid setups, for example by b3 or rook d1. He goes straight in for the kill with e5, which changes the pawn structure to something that we could probably relate to the French defense. And as such, Giri is aiming to create some sort of attack on the king side, whereas black is going to rely on his counterpunch with c5, or if a take takes place, then on the c file with the bishop coming onto this diagonal, and so on. So it's a very sharp battle that is about to ensue here, and that again I quite appreciate as a spectator. He plays h3, that's to deny knight b4, occasionally even to play b4 to shut down c5, but that's less typical. Knight c7 back, getting ready for c5, getting ready for bishop a6. So far so good. Giri then goes in for the trade, and thus allowing black to retake with the knight. I think this is not main line, is it? I never played this with either color. Probably best. I'm not going to criticize Carlsen for sure, but again, an interesting thing to know that knight e5 does allow knight e4, which of course is a perfect springboard for the white knight towards the king side. So Giri again goes, game on baby, I'm gonna make ya. And when Carlsen goes h6, Giri goes g4. I mean, boy, you can't really say that this kid does not have the cojones it takes to play aggro chess and play for a win, when he chucks in the kitchen and the sink against Carlsen in such an inspired style. Good on him. c5, perfect counterpunch, very logical. And by the way, the one reason why I really love watching top level chess, and so many people sort of, especially lower level players and club players, to whom I suppose my channel mostly is applicable to, overlook the most important things and they get lost in the tiny detail, is that they rely so heavily on chess principles that we were taught and learned and then ignored, that it's just amazing. Like, look at that. They chuck their pieces in the center like gods, and as soon as one side goes, I am going to attack you on the wing, instant counterpunch in the center. So we tend to play through these moves without actually allocating some common sense to them that would make it so easy for us to understand, and it would bring these immortal gods of chess a little bit closer to us, not necessarily because now we can play like them, but because we understand the underlying concepts. And we understand why c5 takes 0 seconds to Carlsen to play, because that's the right play to take, the right move to play, the right concept. If you are getting attacked on the wing, more than likely you need to see counterplay on the center. Bang, c5. There you go. Giri pursues the attack. Carlsen continues counterpunching in the center. This is textbook chess. This is how you are taught to play chess, provided that you were told by a proper teacher or coach, or that you read the proper book. That's it. That's what a 1600 is told how to play. Takes on h6, and Carlsen pushes by, thus sort of creating a new barrier in front of his own king. And now this pawn is failed to open up files, although admittedly now the dark squares are very weak, but now white has got more to do, and actually in this position he went wrong. I would almost say blundered if it was a proper time control game by playing knight eg5, but then again blundering at the expense of what? Playing the most aggressive move there is on the board, and that's Giri for you. So I wouldn't really be the first one to throw a stone at him. Stone or throw, that's a new one. Throw a stone at him and say like, well, how can you play for draws all the time? It's boring. Well, nah, this kid is going for the neck. Like, look at that. Knight g5, threatening knight takes e6, takes, and then queen g6 mate. And perhaps Giri wouldn't play like this if it was a proper time control game. I don't know. But I really do want to give him the credit for playing the way he is. For the record, the correct move according to various engines, and I haven't seen any analysis done by humans on it yet, is rook e1, reinforcing the knight on e4, so that after the extremely unpleasant rook c8, we can come back to d1 to actually hunt this down and potentially come out this way. And here the best move for black is actually knight e3, a really awesome tactical motif, exploiting the knight on e4. So this is a clever way to return the material. And if I thought Effie was best with takes and then takes back again. And this looks like a very, very messy position where white still has some initiative on the king side, but structurally backward pawn, weak squares, 75 pawn islands, not looking good that way. But dynamically it seemed fine. Now instead Giri went knight g5, rook c8, and then dropped back to d1. But now it looks like it's getting really messy. A lot of very good moves are available for black. The computer's preference is d3, which I really do like, because it tries to lure the queen onto a square where again black gets a lot of tempos to accelerate the counterplay on the queen side and on the in the middle. Really inspiring chess. Instead Carlsen went bishop a6 right away, logical. Then he pushed d3. Quite frankly, I can't fault him. The only comment I would make on that is that after d3, if white went, for example, rook e1, then maybe bishop a6 wouldn't be forced, and the bishop actually seemed to stand better here, and then maybe just continue knights if I don't know. But perhaps that was the difference why d3 was favored by the computer. Anyway, h4. There it goes. The first time he has a chance to catch his breath, he instantly goes for the attack again. I just love it. And for the record, on their standards, white is lost here, because that attack is just not quick enough and the counterplay comes too fast. But he does it and he tries it and he almost succeeds. I love it. And Carlsen's moves, and this is noteworthy, that under pressure, even the greatest tend to become a little bit shaky. Rook c4 was here the way to go, to occasionally swing across here and just in general control a lot of vitally important squares. across the fourth rank. Knight c5, Giri goes knight d4, a mistake on white's end 2, according to the engine that is. Knight e4 is recommended. No idea. I'm being fully honest with you. That was my intention, and it always is, but especially when I'm analyzing level games of the gods, I don't like it when people present it like they know it all. I have no idea what knight e4 is all about. I could probably figure it out, but to me it just doesn't seem to add up that now we're retreating with the knight for no apparent reason. And the main line goes with queen d7, bishop d2. To a human, it looks like I'm waiting for being executed. So if this is the best, I totally understand why Giri didn't do it, because this to a human looks like I just give up on the attack, you can come and kill me. And that's essentially what it translates to, by the way. So at least knight d4 seems to be allowing the queen to come out. This is a very human move. And this is what I'm talking about when it's, you look on the side and the engine says knight e4, fine. So Giri plays knight d4, that went down from minus 0.4 to minus 2.4, he's stupid. No. It doesn't work like that. We are not engines, and we are not designed to think the way engines do, if I can call that even thinking. Knight d4 is a beautiful example of a superbly human move. He wants to attack. He wants to go queen g4. He wants to go h5. He wants this thing to roll. Knight e4 is the exact opposite of everything Giri has tried to do for the last 20 moves. No human will do that for you. No way. So I would like to credit him for this, despite of it being probably a losing move. Yes, chess is a funny thing. Carlsen finds the better refutation. By the way, knight f4, beauty. Usually a good idea to offer trades when on the defense. So now that gets traded for that. And in that trade, the black queen also enters the fray. Now white is well and truly on the ropes. Queen g4 comes, justifying knight d4, by the way. d2, rook d1. And here another funny motive to force further trades would have been bishop e2. Again, playing on the fact that now another white piece has been left unguarded. And now, admittedly, we are giving up d2, but we are picking off these cherries. And all of a sudden, due to the opposite colored bishops, it is going to be black who is going to develop substantial initiative. And then I haven't even mentioned the fact that there's a tiny little exchange to be picked up here. Black is winning. That was missed by Carlsen. He played knight e3, and that almost gave away all the advantage Black had. Knight e4. Now h5 is really annoying. Knight f6 is becoming a thing. So swap. He took b2. Not so much to take a free pawn, just so that we understand again what's going on, but to step out of this check. So he takes. Giri chases him off the diagonal and goes in. Check. Once again, computer says queen d2. No human would ever play that. That means surrendering all the attack, and surrendering, in fact, to a far worse, potentially dead lost endgame. No human plays chess like that. Knight f6, king h8, bishop e4. Once again, he still tries to win the unwinnable. He still could settle for queen d2 and enter a bad endgame. Nah, he goes, I'm here to beat ya. Rook c4 is best. Counter pin, or rather just a pin, and forcing trades. So here the quality of the game drops a little bit on both sides. Takes, and now, when it looks most likely, and when also it seems impossible to continue the attack, now and only now does he give in to this inferior endgame that he eventually manages to hold, by the way. And the rest of the game is really not that important. It's an endgame that is played quite well in terms of both the defense and the attack, and eventually fizzles into a dead draw pawn ending. But the essence of the game that I really liked, and the reason why I chose to publish it, was because boy, just Giri went for it. And I love it. I really like it when someone just goes like, yep, I'm here to beat ya, and I'm gonna chuck everything at you and see how I go. That's an honest, really awesome approach, and it's always a guaranteed scrap for entertainment. And he actually carried on in a similarly awesome fashion a couple of games later as Black. Yep, as Black, he goes for the win. I mean, bishop b5 check is not exactly the I'm going to murder you approach against the Sicilian, but hey, Courses for horses, horses for courses rather. This is it. So we go into the side variation. I swallowed a couple of thoughts there that I thought was better unspoken. He plays very normal chess, develops everything, and instantly goes on with b5, grabbing the initiative at the expense of structural deficiencies. That's not the Giri that we used to mock for taking draws left and right and center. Look at that. Allows a6 isolated pawn and then just goes on with his life. Full development, awesome central control. I would prefer to be black here, hands down, any day of the week. And I'm saying that despite of the fact that the computer's eval is a slight edge to white, really minor. But to me, this position is far more attractive from black's point of view than white's. d3, knight takes, and just dominates the center. Look at that. Like, as far as chess principles are concerned, what we see here is full development on black side. Beautiful two bishops, a centralized knight, rooks ready to join the fray, whereas this is a really clumsy setup. That only benefit that this setup has is the sturdiness and the apparent lack of positional concessions, such as this isolated pawn here. Once again, no questions asked which side I prefer or would play it with. Loving Giri's chess here, and actually he's going to win this quite nicely too, although Carlsen is going to make a very uncharacteristic huge blunder here. But then again, I feel white is under pressure here. I really like black's chess, which is, by the way, one of the swallowed thoughts that I didn't say, but I will now. If you play bishop b5 check, well, you get punished for not playing open Sicilian like Carlsen always does, or used to, or should, or put whatever you want there. d4, take, and knight b4. Boy, that's a motive. So Carlsen would be more than happy to give up that pawn, even though it doesn't even hang because of the c6 motive. But in general, to get rid of it, his bishop at the cost of a pawn and retaining that bishop, plenty enough counterplay, not even a question. But I'm not sure if he has seen this or not, although that was technically not the blunder. Where things went out of hand was, in fact, it was a one-move blunder really, because even he ba5 is okay, because after bishop f2 check, king f1, the queen is very awkwardly hanging. So now I have to play queen d4. And here, for example, just a random offer to trade queens would have potentially allowed Carlsen to stand quite okay. Although admittedly here we are talking about an exchange down, but with two isolated connected pawns, sorry, two connected pass pawns, this is looking like a maybe holdable scenario. I don't know, but something went amiss hereabouts after knight b4. Perhaps take was a mistake and queen d1 was to be preferred. And like I said, enter this scenario. I'm actually acting out differently from what I'm speaking. Listen to what I say, don't watch. What I just said, keeping this bishop and eliminating this one here gives white plenty enough counterplay to cook up some nice mate threats and be very annoying. Despite of white being a pawn down, he's not worthy by any means. So yes, I believe take was actually a mistake, because now f2 is really exposed and can't be protected because of the hanging bishop on e2. Look at the striking difference between the activity, by the way, the two black bishops versus their white counterpart. Amazing stuff. And here, like I said, queen c3 would have probably kept Carlsen in the game. Plays queen c6. Now this is a very uncharacteristic blunder that, in my opinion, purely comes down to time issues like time control. And after bishop e1, the position is purely resignable, because rook here loses a piece. Bishop here, as the text, I will show you that in a second. King takes is a mate in 1. Oops. So rook takes was played. No, sorry, bishop takes was played, but unfortunately after queen b2 there are two pieces hanging at the same time. GG. That was it. Once again, loving the chess here, demonstrated by Giri. I wanted to talk to you about this win of Carlsen's, but there is very little to say. And again, this is really, in my opinion, one and only thing, and that is time control. We play a mainline Nimzo here, where everyone knows, especially on their level, that here after d5, if you don't play e4, you're dead. End of story. And I don't know what happened here with Giri, you getting lines mixed up in his head when the knight is on f3, or whatever the story was. But to give you a bit of an idea about what's going on here. So if I play knight f3, this variation called the Hübner variation is a very common theoretical line here for both sides, where white's objective is to play for f4, try to crack the position open for the two bishops. And black in the interim is trying to play, especially against c4, but in general against the weakened white pawn structure. Note that here knight e7 is also a famous line. This was the Spassky-Fischer game that Fischer won in a beautiful fashion. So there are multiple ways here to play this, but the point is that with the knight on g3, we need to recognize the fact that now white is about 70 tempos ahead compared to the main line that I just showed you, because the knight is not here but here, meaning f4 is good to go. In that other main line I showed you, here white has to play about at least 2 awkward knight moves to make f4 happen. And in fact, when I go knight anywhere, so for argument's sake, I'm just going to play 2 lemons now. No one would play like this. So when I play f4, the knight is nowhere near in the vicinity, so I even have to reroute it. That's a lot of time lost. Now compare that to what happens here. Yeah, this must have been some sort of a mental issue where he just shut down for a couple of seconds and didn't realize what he has done to himself. Now f4 is going to come without any prep moves. And the knight is already ready to join the fray. Watch how quickly it collapses. Bishop g4, f3, bishop back, bishop g5. Creating an extremely annoying pin. And if I just, like, here essentially black is zugzwanged. Because knight, he can't ever be played because of knight f5. If I can't do that, then I can't develop the knight. And any other case, I just castle f4 and he's dead. The position just cracks open and he's going to die on f6. So he opted for giving up f6 altogether, at least forcing white to give up their good bishop. But now again, f4 as a plan is just killing it. Like, black has nothing. Look at it. Everybody at home. No plan whatsoever, a fully developed army. And while some club players would go like, whoa, this king is very weak. Nah, it's not. Because a king is weak when you have stuff to attack it with. This is not going to attack anything here, ever. And goes down very, very quickly too. And understandably, the one motif I really would like to show you is that here, Carlsen being on the attack, he also doesn't chicken out when it comes to carrying out the most aggressive moves. Rook is hanging. Who cares? Black's best piece and only good piece in this position is this knight. This is the cornerstone of the whole entire defense. Without that, it would already be out, gone. So when it comes to allowing that knight to be traded like so, Carlsen doesn't hesitate a second. Because again, you look at it and you just go like, okay, what does black do now? Oh, that's right, nothing at all. Like, I just can't do a thing. And this pawn is rolling up, this queen is coming in, and we are just dead. This is such beautiful chess. In fact, the position is so winning that after queen e7, h5, queen e5, I can even afford a queen trade. That's quite amazing, and just keep pushing. And g5, h6 is going to paralyze the king side entirely. Look at it, black has no moves. So beautiful. And by the way, you find that top players are really, really good at recognizing moments and positions where the evaluation goes against the common logic, because you go like, a rook is worth more than a knight. Except that in this particular case, this knight is actually paralyzes both rooks in reality by denying the g8 square and by backing it up and pushing the pawn up here potentially all the way to h7. And that one piece just paralyzes the whole entire army and causes so much trouble for black that it's just not tenable. Beautiful, beautiful chess. He didn't even take it for the record, but it didn't matter. He took it in the next move, and we actually ended in the same endgame, which Carlsen actually brought home beautifully. And again, note the trademark of a good player. Told you, knight, best piece on the board. way worth more than the rooks. What does Giri do? Instant elimination of the piece. Not a second hesitation. Gives up the exchange the first given opportunity to eliminate the most dangerous piece and then starts fighting for the draw. And he actually is very close to get that. What went wrong here for white was that here he needed to be more cautious about this and needed to protect this pawn on h5 so that after the exchange Saccharino, the most valuable pawn is not a goner. And in fact, in this regard, this pawn game is a bit of a letdown because this should have been a draw. Carlsen went on to win, but I dare say it was a result of multiple mistakes on both ends. And this tactic is very sweet. Forcing the king onto the bishop's diagonal. And then, yeah, now he's going to force material loss on that check. Beautiful. This is like a study-like setup where black just can't get out of the pin. Like, look at that. If you go king back, I still go bishop here. You can't take because this hangs. There's just nothing left. And even if you go back to defend it, after the check, the king has nowhere to go where it would keep an eye on the bishop. That was a fabulous motif, and then Carlsen went on to win. And last but not least, I wanted to mention to you this game too, which was the decisive one. A semi-Tarrasch. An amazing attack by Carlsen, and this takes us back to my beloved No Die Classic series, because this motif that Carlsen utilizes here by playing d5 exclamation mark has been known to us since the 70s. This is a motif that Pologaevsky played, Geller played, Tal played in almost identical positions 20, 30, 40 years ago. In fact, definitely not 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. This move was known to be the ultimate attacking procedure, which basically is based on the idea of when capture happens, we push in and then we occupy the d4 square with the knight, and thus we create a majority of 4 versus 3. Now here the story is really tough, because usually this knight doesn't get to come into e4. But now it did, and even here this motif works, because now capture on e5 is impossible on account of f3. And otherwise f3, f4, and then the kingside attack is going to kick in. Once again, one of the most important feature of the position, somewhat linking this concept to the previous exchange sack by Carlsen, is that this bishop weighs about 5 million times more than this one. Simply because this is biting into its own pawn and has no scope to attack at all. This guy here can attack, and can attack. This one can't, and it never will. It's essentially dead weight. If instead I could have this bishop here, this whole shebang wouldn't work, because that would be a very useful contributor to various IDs. As is, he's just sitting there waiting for white to carry on with the attack. And it's difficult to play on the black side when you have very limited time and the pressure is on. And boy, Carlsen delivers in spades, like that attack just rolling so fluidly. Look at how he rolls out the pawn to force dark squared weakness, which hasn't even happened yet but could. And also the value of having the pawn here, if you think about it, is that for just argument's sake, if I were to attack, you can't play g6 because I can take you twice. Ta-da! Remember what I told you about the bishop? There we go. So really good foresight, very prudent play by Carlsen, pushing this dude up here first before he launches the final attack. And boy, final attack it will be. Rook d4, rook d4, rook d4, knight b3, and nah, we don't have time for silly business like taking a knight back. Queen g3 going for the mate. Beautiful chess. Note again, by the way, just on principle level, that black has got one piece on the king side. One. That's all he has to defend the king. If you cut the board half between the d and the e file, all black pieces are positioned on the queen side except for the rook, which very clearly is not a good defender when it comes to a mate on g7. And then here comes the kill boy, e6. Wow. Cracking the diagonal open. If queen takes, it's mate down there on d8. Beautiful chess. Allowing check, takes, and again, taking back a rook. Silly. No, 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 no. That's not how we win chess games. We win chess games by checkmating our opponent. That's the name of the game. Goes queen c8. You thought we would take? No. That's not how you win chess games. You win chess games by checkmate. This is so beautiful to watch it because, again, it's chess principles at their finest. It's not retake automatic. We are not playing checkers. It's chess. Mate in one threat. Mate in one threat. Good luck holding that. He goes check. Very creative, by the way. Hoping that the knight would take, which would at least negate this mate threat and would allow black to play something like bishop c6 to hold this. What does Carlsen do? I don't have to take it. Not interested, mate. I want mate. And black resigned. So, as conclusion, all of these games would have been worth a video on their own right. Amazing chess, even with limited time control. I really appreciated Giri's mindset of trying to do and play aggressive attacking chess, even though at points it backfired. And overall, I think it was a really, really awesome competition, and I'm really looking forward to the next one. That being said, and I know that this is going to be somewhat hurtful to some people, we need to remember that this is online chess. And online chess is not chess. Online chess is online chess. That's a sister of the real thing, or a sister was a wrong figure of speech here. It's a sidekick of the real thing. And we need to understand it and take it for that. This is more about entertainment. This is more about fun. This is more about popularizing chess. And I will probably make a video very soon about my thoughts, which will probably divide the community, or at least those who watch it, a great deal. But in my book, and it will never change, and I think I'm going against the current with this, online chess is always a means to an end and no more. And that end is over the board chess. That's where this thing happens, and that's what I think we should take seriously, with the matching time control and the added dedication. And online chess is an altogether different story. It's a bit like playing soccer in the Premier League versus kicking the ball on the beach. The rules are the same, different story. On that note, I will let you go. Hope you enjoyed it. I will try, I think, in the future to focus a little bit more on current events. I will see how this video is perceived, and we'll make a call based on that. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'll be back with more soon. Bye.